Welcome back, students. So we had been discussing about semantic analysis phase, and we had discussed that basically in semantic analysis phase, we are converting our context-free grammar of syntax analysis phase to attributed grammar. And what we are doing over here is the attributed grammar is the grammar where with each and every terminal or non-terminal, we are going to associate some attributes. So which kind of attributes we are going to associate? We have seen there are two kind of attributes which we are going to associate: synthesized or inherited. Synthesized attributes are the attributes which are assigned from child to parent, whereas inherited attributes are the attributes which are assigned from parent to child or sibling nodes to a particular node. So that is what we had discussed in the previous lecture. We had even discussed that when we have to write the attributed definition, there are two ways. Either you can write down SDD, that is syntax directed definition. The examples we have discussed in the previous lecture, or you can write translation scheme, which we are going to discuss today. So basically, what is SDD? What we had discussed in SDD, that we will take the basic context free grammar. First of all, we will take rule by rule, pick up one rule first of all, see what actually that rule is doing and what attribute we are interested to associate with that particular rule that we have in the grammar. Then what we have to do, we have to write equivalent semantic actions. So suppose your grammar has 5 rules, then 5 semantic actions need to be created in the sequence. What these semantic actions will be, this semantic action will contain the same rule associating some attributes with it. So we have seen examples for writing SDD for three kind of grammars: for desk calculator grammar, for type declaration grammar, and also for generating syntax tree using the functions for desk calculator grammar. So these three we have discussed, which has been asked many a times in GTU papers. Now, if you make a little modification to syntax directed definition, you end up having translation scheme. What is main difference between two of them? The translation scheme gives you information about even the sequence in which the semantic actions are going to be performed, which the previous one, that is SDD, is not giving to you. So for all the grammars we discussed earlier, we can even write translation scheme also. So today we are going to write translation schemes. The base of translation scheme is whether you are writing you are using synthesized attribute or inherited attribute. Now before that, we had even discussed two important concepts. The first was S attributed definition. If a grammar has only synthesized attributes, then that grammar is called S attributed grammar. If a grammar has uh, all the nodes where values can be either calculated by child node, that is synthesized attributes, or that value can be created by parent node, parent inheritance is allowed, left sibling inheritance is allowed, but right to left inheritance is not allowed. If all these conditions are satisfied by a grammar, then that attributed grammar is called L attributed grammar. Okay. So that is what we had discussed earlier. Now we are going to move ahead and discuss about the translation schemes. Okay. So let me share my screen and show the PPT. We'll start from whatever we had been discussing. This is what we have discussed already, L attributed grammar. Okay. Now translation schemes. So CFG, where semantic actions occur within the right hand side of the production. Translation scheme is once again your context free grammar with semantic actions. But in your when you have written your SDD, then you had semantic actions only. In translation scheme, the semantic actions are written inside your original productions. That is the difference. Your production will be as it is, and inside the production, semantic actions are going to be written. So how they are going to be written inside, we'll see with the example. So for synthesized attribute, the semantic action will be included in the same rule at the end of the rule. How to write translation schemes? That depends what kind of attribute you are dealing with. If your attribute is synthesized, then the semantic action that you need to write need to be embedded in the production at the end. Let us take one example. If your rule is e derives e plus t, what kind of SDD semantic action you will be writing in SDD? E dot val is equal to E dot val plus T dot val. Now the same semantic action we are going to write here, but inside the production rule, embedded in curly brackets. So if it is synthesized, we are going to write it like, write first of all rule, and when the rule ends, have curly brackets. Inside the curly bracket, write the same semantic action that you have written earlier, but earlier it was independent. If you write 5 or 6 semantic rules independently, that was making your SDD. So in SDD, you don't have original production as it is, but in translation scheme, you have production also and semantic action also. So that in red, whatever I have written, that is translation scheme equivalent to whatever I have written in the blue. For inherited attributes, semantic actions or rules will be included in between the rule. Where in between the rule? Whatever node is having inherited attribute, before that node, uh, semantic action need to be included. Let us see with examples so it will become more clear. D derives type T list semicolon. Now, as we have seen previously the example of this rule, we already know that here type is the node which has synthesized attributes type dot type, where T list or list, it has synthesis, it has inherited attribute because its value is calculated using the value of type from the left sibling. Okay, so it is type tlist dot in. The semantic action which it is producing is tlist dot in is equal to type dot type. But where to write it? So you have to always, thus what you are creating here, you are creating the value of tlist here. So tlist has what kind of attribute? Inherited. So these semantic action inside curly bracket should be embedded where? Before the node of tlist. So what we have done over here, written the same rule as it is, but in the rule, wherever you have written T-list, the semantic action which is calculating the value of T-list should be embedded just before it in the curly bracket. So this is the equivalent translation scheme rule for the rule that I have written over here. So can you spot the difference between SDD and translation scheme? SDD only has semantic rule. Whereas in translation scheme, you have original production, and inside original production, either at the end or in between somewhere, you are embedding the semantic rule. We'll see more examples, it will be more clear. Okay, so let us take first example. This is the example of desk calculator grammar for which we have written SDD also. So what was SDD? If you consider the curly brackets over here, whatever I have written in red, and if you write that independently, that is your SDD. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So what is your translation scheme? CFG plus embedded semantic actions. That is your translation scheme. How to write it? As we all know that our desk calculator grammar is synthesized grammar, S attributed grammar, because each and every non-terminal terminal here has synthesized attribute. So without thinking much, what we are going to do, all semantic actions are going to be attached at the end only. So what I'm going to do, write down the first, pick up the first rule, write it as it is, and at the end in curly bracket, I will write the equivalent semantic action. What is equivalent semantic action? E dot val is equal to E dot val plus T dot val. Okay, I'll pick up the second rule, E derives T, and at the end I will write semantic rule in curly bracket. What is the equivalent semantic action? E dot val is equal to T dot val. Okay, I will pick up the third rule. T derives T multiplied by F. Now again, it is also generating some synthesized attribute. Hence, the semantic action will be added at the end as, sorry, it should have been T dot val, not E. Please read it as T dot val. So T dot val is equal to T dot val multiplied by F dot val. Okay, move ahead. T derives F. So semantic action T dot val is equal to F dot val is added at the end because synthesized attribute. And finally, F derives ID. So F dot val is equal to make entry, or you can have even make node or whatever rule you use. This is the call to the function which is going to make the entry in the symbol table. So F dot value is equal to make entry ID dot, comma value. So it is going to make the value, write the value in the symbol table entry of ID. So what we have done over here? Nothing new. We already know how to write SDD. We already have CFG. Now as it is S attributed grammar, we need not to think anything. Only write the original production, at the end in curly bracket, write down semantic rule and repeat. That's it. So this is asked for 7 marks. Imagine this is asked for 7 marks. You have to just write down this 5 lines and you will get 7 marks. Okay, without any explanation. Let us take one more example. This is the type declaration grammar for which we have written SDD type translation scheme over here. Now we know that this is not S attributed grammar and we don't know whether it is L attributed or not. As it is not S attributed grammar, we cannot have all semantic action embedded at the end. So we have to make sure that for each and every rule we have to check whether that rule is generating which kind of attribute. If it is synthesized, right at the end. If it is inherited, right in between. So we'll see that one by one. The first rule says D derives type T list semicolon. So what kind of semantic action it is creating? Once again, if you will observe red entries, these red entries are the semantic actions created. If you write them in sequence, it will make your SDD equivalent to this particular grammar, right? So again, what we are doing is CFG plus SDD, but the semantic rules are written inside somewhere for inherited rules. So the first rule, type T-list, that is generating inherited attribute value for T-list. So the semantic action should be included before T-list. Hence, I have written it like, first of all, write down the original rule as it is, and just before T-list, you have to add the semantic rule, which is calculating the value for T-list. So before T-list, I have written T-list.in equal to type.type. Okay, fine. The semantic rule which this particular production is indicating, that is written before T-list. Okay. The second rule is type derives integer. Now see, this is the synthesized. Integer is assigned to type. So synthesized kind of attribute. The third rule is also synthesized kind of attribute. If it is attribute is synthesized, where the semantic rule is going to be written at the end. So I have written the original rule type derives integer, and at the end the semantic action type.type is equal to integer is written. Similarly, type derives float, and at the end type.type is equal to float, that is added at the end in the curly bracket. That's it. Now let us focus on this next rule. T-list derives T-list comma ID. Now see this capital T and small t, that is mistake. Both should be the same case because that is the same non-terminal used on left side as well as right side. Okay, so please read this small t as also capital T. I will revise and then only share the PPTs. So this is T-list comma ID. So if you observe this closely, what kind of attribute it is creating? The first attribute it is creating is T-list. First semantic action it is generating is T-list.in is equal to T-list.in. This right side T-list will get the value from the parent node. So as these attributes value, this node's value is being created from parent node, inherited, the semantic action should be written before this node. So what we have done? T-list derives semantic action and then T-list1. Read this as T-list1. So we can differentiate between the variables. So the semantic action has been written over here. What? T-list1.in is equal to this T-list.in. Okay. Now, comma. See, we have written the original rule as it is. So whatever you can read in green, that is the original rule. Whatever you can see in red, that is the semantic action which has been included, embedded inside the original rule. So comma, and then what I have to do? ID. But again, ID has synthesized attribute or inherited attribute. ID is getting value from where? Either from sibling or parent node. So again, it is inherited. So the semantic rule is written first of all, that make entry of ID and get the value from where? From T-list, either from parent or T-list1. You can write anything, that will be correct. Okay. So make entry of ID in the symbol table. What entry you should do? Either T-list or T-list1 can be written over here. And then we will write ID. So what we have observed as T-list1 and ID has inherited attribute, the semantic rule equivalent to them, which is calculating that their value, is added before them. That's it. Last rule is T-list derives ID. So I have written the same rule as it is. And again, ID has inherited attribute. So the semantic rule for ID, make entry of ID. That semantic, I forgot opening bracket here. Please read it as it is. Opening bracket in the beginning. I'll be sharing the PPT adding that. So opening bracket, make entry, closing bracket. That semantic action is written before ID because ID is having inherited attributes. So writing translation scheme is very, very easy. What you are doing over here, simply you are simply embedding the semantic action you have written in SDD inside the original production rules. So how SDD and translation scheme are different? In SDD you had only semantic actions. No original CFG was there. Original production was not there. Also in SDD you cannot know which semantic action is applied first on which later. Whereas in translation scheme you have original production as it is, and you also have the semantic action. Also you come to know that before T-list the value is evaluated, before this value is evaluated, before you calculate this, the value of T-list, this should be evaluated. So evaluation order is also maintained in case of translation scheme. Okay, let us take one more example of writing translation scheme. Let us take the example of eliminated left recursion from the desk calculator grammar. Read R as E dash. E derives T E dash. E dash is R. E dash derives plus E dash derives minus E dash, and E dash derives epsilon. T derives bracketed E, T derives ID. We are going up to plus and minus only, so we have not included F over here. Okay. So for this rule, what is semantic action and where it should have been included, that we need to understand. So E derives T E dash. Okay. So this is the non-left recursive productions. So where to write this, we can understand only if we know the dependency graph. So let us understand with this, so it will be more clear. Okay. So what we have done over here, we have drawn the tree using these rules. Apply this rule and try to parse this string 9 minus 5 plus 2. So if you draw it from bottom to top, which is the list precedence operator, how you are going to generate this string using 9 minus 5 plus 2. So see, when you have non-left recursive, you are not going to pick up the list precedence operator first. What you are doing with non-left recursive grammar, pick up in the same sequence of the expression you have. So as you have minus plus first, you have to apply the pick up the rule for minus first. So what is the rule for minus over here? We have E dash derives minus T E dash. Okay, and for getting E dash, what do you require? E derives T E dash. So what we are going to do over here? E derives first of all T E dash, that is R, and E dash derives minus T E dash. Okay, now what we require? Again plus. So plus is on right side of minus. So this E dash will derive plus T E dash. Okay, now we are going to assign the values. I'm sorry. So the first value 9 is assigned to this T. Okay, now T derives number, T derives number, T derives number, and E dash derives epsilon. So here you assign 9, here you assign 5, here you assign 2. Okay, fine. Now how value are evaluated, that is, see, so you will understand it properly. So the number T dot value will be 9. Okay. Now how operations are going to be applied over here. So we can observe over here that first of all, what is going to happen? 9 minus 5 is going to happen. So how 9 minus 5 will take place? So the value of 9 is over here, and here what you are going to do, this value of 9 is the rule is read as E derives T E dash and E dash derives minus T E dash. So this E, which is on left side, that will become the left operand minus and right operand, and the result is going to be stored over here in this E dash. So it will be 9 minus 5. So what you will get? 4. So 4 is going to be stored over here in this R. Now once again the left hand side E dash will be the left operand. So 4 plus 2. So 4 plus 2, 6 is going to be stored over here in the final E dash. So the answer that you get is 6. Now that answer is going to be propagated to the previous E dash, then the previous E dash, and finally up to E. So it goes back one operation at a time, and finally E will have the answer 6. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a rule like E derives T E dash, then what this says, the value of E dash is inherited value, and that is evaluated using the value of T. So E dash dot I is equal to T dot value. Okay, forget what I have written at the last in every rule, that we'll be discussing later. Now E dash derives plus T E dash. What this rule says, this R E dash is left operand, then plus, and this T is the right operand. The result is going to be stored in R1. Let me call it R1 only to not to have confusion. So this rule can be read as R plus T, and the result is stored in R1. So before you write R1, the result is generated before R1. So the semantic action should be included before R1. So R1 dot I is equal to R dot I plus T dot value. Forget this last bracket, we will be discussing it later. Next, once again, this rule can be read as R minus T is stored in R1. So before you write R1, you need to embed the rule R1 dot I is equal to R dot I minus T dot value. R derives epsilon. Okay. What is meaning of R derives epsilon? See, if you go back to this explanation, what we did over here, R derives epsilon. At this point, what we are doing is whatever answer we are getting in the R, that we will start throwing back to the parent node in its synthesized attribute. As we will be passing value from child to parent, that value will be the synthesized attribute value. Again, this node will pass on the value to the parent node as synthesized value. Again, and that way we will reach to the root node. So R dot S is equal to R dot I, means this is the place where we are assigning the same node. Synthesized node's value is assigned to inherited node's value is assigned to synthesized node. This inherited node's value is calculated using R plus T, that is 6, which is assigned over here R dot I, which I have to assign to R dot S, which I am going to throw to this R dot S. That will be, I will be throwing to this R dot S, and that I will be throwing to this E dot S. How? Let us see that. Okay. So this is clear to everyone. Now T derives bracketed E. So T dot val is equal to E dot val. Simply, as we are just assigning the value, it is synthesized right to left, and hence it is written at end. T derives num. So T dot value is equal to num dot lex value. Again, it is T. You are assigning the value of number to T. So that is bottom to top, synthesized value. Hence it is written at the end. Now once again focus on this, whatever I have written in right. So focus on the right side, R dot S values. What happens when R derives epsilon? R has inherited value which is assigned to its synthesized copy. Then that synthesized copy is assigned to the previous. See, observe this. See what happens over here. 9 value is assigned to this. Then that value is assigned to R. Then that value of 5 will come from here. Now 9 minus 5, that will go to this R. Then next is 2 is assigned to value. Then 4 plus 2, 6 will happen. That will be assigned to R. Okay, you will now understand the last parenthesis that you have to include. The 6th value, which is in R dot I, is assigned to the synthesized attribute of the same variable. R dot S is equal to R dot I. Now this will be thrown to the parent node. So see, this is once again, this is thrown to the parent node. So R dot S is equal to R1 dot S. This is thrown to the parent node again. See, and finally to this. So E dot value is equal to R dot S, which is 6. So see, observe this, the kind of bracket arrows we are having at the end. These arrows, which I am again explaining, these 3 arrows. Let me repeat this. Yes, these 3 arrows, 1, 2, and 3. These 3 arrows are helping you to propagate value to the root node, and hence, I'm sorry, I need to go back to this particular node for understanding. Okay, this particular one. Okay, so the transitions that we have understood. Now we can understand what we have written over here. If you observe the first rule once again, the value of value of R is calculated, R dot I is calculated from the value of T. Okay, that is what we have written. As it is inherited, it is written between T and R. What is this? E dot value is equal to R dot S. That is the third arrow we have seen in the tree. All these values, this E dot value is equal to R dot S, R dot S is equal to R1 dot S, R dot S is equal to R1 dot S. These are 3 arrows I have explained in the presentation. So whatever I have written at the end, they are the synthesized semantic actions which are throwing back values to the parent nodes, which we have even explained with the dependency tree, how the values are propagated to the tree. So what two values it is calculating? It is calculating value of R. Also, it is assigning value to the node capital E. So that calculation of capital E, which is coming from child node to parent node, that is written at the last. Similarly, in this rule, it is calculating the value of R1. So that is inherited, returning between T and R1. But it is also passing the value to the left side node, that is parent node, and hence that action is written at the end. R dot S is equal to R1 dot S. The throwback we have seen earlier. Similarly here as well. So that is what we have discussed. Once again, let us see the values and how it is propagating the values. First, you get the value here, then you pass on to R from left sibling, then you get the value of number to T, then you apply the operation 9 minus 5 and store that value in the R. Now once again you get the value of 2 to the t, then 4 plus 2 will happen, it will be stored in 6. Now you have the rule r derives epsilon, so that place you will have r dot s is equal to r dot I. Synthesized copy of r will be prepared. R dot s is equal to r dot I. This is very important. This will be written at the right side of the production. This is very important. Now onwards, whatever propagation we are doing, that is written on rightmost side in each of the productions. Now this copy is thrown to the parent node, so r dot s is equal to r1 dot s. Again this copy is thrown back, r dot s is equal to r1 dot s, and that is thrown back to parent node, so that is e dot val. So that is what we have written as the lastmost semantic action, rightmost semantic action in every production we have seen earlier. So that's it. This is all they are asking in GTU question paper. So with this, we are finishing our syllabus of compiler design subject for my portion and semantic analysis phase. I'm going to send you some material regarding the frequently asked questions in GTU paper for this particular unit. That will be a document that will have the answer of how STD, what is answer for STD, what is answer for translation scheme. But please don't cram that answers. You have to watch this video first of all, go through the PPT, and then only go through that document which I will be sharing. So all the best for preparing the subjects. Go through all the videos before your exams, solve all the examples properly so that your concepts will be very clear. And please make sure that whatever examples we have done on the board, as well as we have done in assignments, as well as in the class notes, each and every example you must be solving. That will be helpful for GTU exams also, and that is going to be very helpful to you for GATE and other competitive exams also. If you have any query or doubt, please feel free to post in classroom, post me on WhatsApp or by mail or whatever mode you're comfortable with. Even you can come to college with your parents' consent for discussing the queries. So thank you and all the best. I'll be sharing a quiz and assignment very soon. Also, I'll be sharing GTU question papers as well as the GATE question papers from this unit after this. So thank you. All the best.